Netflix has released plenty of fun anime recently, from Record of Ragnarok and Cyberpunk Edgerunners to Delicious in Dungeon and the subject of today's video, Dandadan. When it comes to ghosts and aliens, which are good and which are evil? I'm Kifinosi with OtakuBinge, and this is Dandadan, Good to Evil. And of course, spoilers ahead. As always, we're starting with the best of the cast and moving down to the worst of the worst. These are the good. Starting with the best of the best, earning our gold medal of good is Ken Takakura, aka Okarun. Okarun is a nerdy boy who becomes friends with Momo Ayase. He's obsessed with the occult, specifically aliens, but he doesn't believe in ghosts. After running into the yokai known as Turbo Granny, he's cursed with her power, and even though he has enough control to save Momo, he needs Momo to hold his power down constantly. Okarun is a good guy, and once he makes the power of Turbo Granny his own, he uses it to save people whenever he can, including people like Aira. He believes that helping people is not only good, but necessary, and he does it often. Sure, he hasn't turned his powers to help the greater community yet, but it becomes clear that he would if he thought to do so. Okarun is a good guy at heart, even though he's been cursed by a yokai. Up next, we have our silver medal of good, which goes to Momo Ayase. Momo Ayase is a teenage high school student who's inarguably the main protagonist of the show. She cares about other people deeply, as shown when she stops Okarun from being bullied. She's obsessed with the actor Ken Takakura, and as such, when Okarun reveals his real name, she tells him he's not allowed to say it. She is shown to be very nice and helpful to others, such as how she stays up all night with Hana until Taro shows up. She also has a bit of a rude side, which pulls her down a tad. She acts very rude to Okarun after first meeting him, but she immediately apologizes. She also is said to step up even when things are dangerous, and this leads to her to do dangerous things to help people. The main reason she falls below Okarun is that she does a few things that lead to her being seen as a bad person by the rest of the cast, even if she doesn't care how others feel about her. In all reality, Okarun and Momo are interchangeable on this list, but they're also too different to rank together. However, someone who isn't interchangeable is the owner of our bronze medal of good, none other than Jin Enjoji, aka Gigi. Gigi is a character who doesn't appear until the final 3 episodes of the show, and as such doesn't have a lot to work with. However, as we see, he is a proper person. He may be a bit annoying, but it doesn't change the fact that he seems to be a good guy. He was Momo's childhood friend and first crush, and as such, is shown to be constantly annoying her because of this. He also seems to be a bit on the jealous side, as shown when he attacks Okarun outside of his house. He also tries to be a good guy at all times, as he tries to protect Momo from Taro, not knowing her powers or what she's done. Despite all this, his positive attitude and his very short list of appearances place him here on our list for now. Moving on to our first non-medalist, we have our first duo with Miko and Muko. Miko and Muko are Momo's friends who sit in the back of the class alongside her and appear in a variety of episodes. The two of them are shown to be very tuned in, not only to Momo, but the school. They are repeatedly shown to be concerned for Momo, such as when she's sad after Okarun's interaction with Aira. They are prone to crazy theories, such as when they believe that Aira, Okarun, and Momo are in a love triangle, when that's obviously not true. Regardless, they're very caring to their friend and even try their best to help Momo and Okarun after they're brought back to their regular school. This duo cares for each other and Momo, and that's very clear, hence why they're landing here. When it comes to caring for others, we'd be remiss to not mention Mr. Mantis Shrimp, the Dover Demon. The Dover Demon is a secondary antagonist during the Serpo school arc, where he's hired by the Serpoians to knock Okarun and afterward Aira unconscious. He does his job as asked, but since he doesn't do well enough, he is then brainwashed and turned into a different creature. Ignoring the actions committed by this version, he later reappears outside the school where he's injured and then taken in by the main cast. After being taken in, he decides to help the main cast. It's revealed that he only took up gig work because his son has a disease that requires daily blood transfusions. But once Seiko and crew realize his species' blood is the same as milk, he's given a cow. This is when he promises to come help the main crew whenever they need his help, and while that hasn't come to pass, we believe he will. Sure, he did attack and seriously harm Okarun, but the reason he did so and his face turn make him barely miss the gray area. With the good guys all out of the way, we now have those who are in the neutral zone. This is the gray area. Starting our gray area off is Seiko Ayase. Seiko is Momo's grandmother and the TV psychic known as Santa Dodoria. Upon first appearing at home, she beats the hell out of a Turbo Granny-infested Okarun because they were harming Momo. Seiko falls in the gray area because despite her being a grandmother, she is considerably rude to not only other people, but her own granddaughter. She calls Momo nothing but trouble, holds a grudge against Momo for how she acted when she was a small child, and is constantly rude to everyone in her life. She does fall to the top of the gray area because she is helpful in some cases. She gives the Dover Demon a cow so they can do blood transfusions and allows both Gigi and Hana to stay in her home when they're in need. Seiko is a good person at heart, but how she treats Momo and Okarun does stop her from getting into the good. Up next in our gray area is the school nurse Queen. Queen is a character who only appears in a single episode, but she makes quite the impression. Queen is a school nurse who utterly despises bullying in all of its forms. So much so that she threatens anyone who she thinks may be bullying someone. This is hilarious because she immediately ends up assaulting a fellow faculty member because he interrupts her. Queen needs more appearances before we can place her elsewhere, but as it stands, her anti-bullying stance lands her here. Moving down the list, we have Taro. Taro is a living anatomy dummy who lives in Momo and Okarun's school. Initially, it's thought that Taro has one of Okarun's kintama, but this turns out to not be the case. The entirety of his first appearance is him running away from Momo and Okarun so he can get to the dump. It turns out that Taro is trying to find his lost love Hana, who is a smaller anatomy dummy. Taro ends up working alongside Momo and Okarun, letting Hana stay at Seiko's house where he visits nightly. He cares deeply for Hana, and his love is shown to be pure, and while she doesn't appear long, it becomes clear that his love is the most important part of his character. Even when he's run over by a truck, he still shows up for Hana, and while he may look scary, it goes to show to not judge a book by its cover. Speaking of judging books, our next neutral character is our first villain, the acrobatic Silky. The Silky is a large acrobatic yokai with extremely long hair. She first appears when she's stalking Aira at the school after Aira founds one of Okarun's kintama. She then tries to kidnap Aira and force her to call her mommy, because Aira once called her that when she was very young. The Silky initially is a powerful foe that attacks Okarun and the gang, even eating them when she doesn't get her way. However, once Aira is killed by her being eaten, the Silky gives up her soul so that Aira can come back to life. This sacrifice gives her a lot of points. We then learn that she used to be a normal mother who was killed by loan sharks who kidnapped her daughter, and when she was reborn as a vengeful spirit, she convinced herself that Aira was her child, and she would do anything to protect her. With this knowledge, it becomes clear what kind of person she is. Her protection does lead to harm, yes, but it's understandable why she did what she did. Sadly, Silky's sad backstory doesn't stop her heinous actions, such as the accidental killing of Aira, which of course stops her from raising any higher on our list. Speaking of not ranking higher, Aira's unnamed friends. Aira's friends are amongst the popular kids in the school, and are shown helping Aira in a variety of ways, such as obtaining the materials for Aira's banishment, or being genuinely concerned for Aira after the Serpo invasion of the school. They seem to help Aira no matter what she does, leading them to doing messed up things like tying down Momo for Aira's banishment. The only reason they don't fall lower is that they are trying to be genuinely helpful, and they are shown to be concerned for Aira when she reappears. Speaking of concern, rounding out our gray area is none other than Aira Shiratori. Aira is one of the main characters of Dandadan. She finds one of Okarun's kintama and believes the heavens chose her to save Earth. She is awfully full of herself, constantly talking herself up, and how she is not only chosen, but how Momo is secretly a demon who she's meant to defeat. She spends most of her time on screen fighting Momo and constantly annoying her and Okarun whenever she appears. She also spreads nasty rumors about Momo that cause her reputation to tank, and she has no qualms with this. What stops her from falling into the bad category is that she helps the Silky reach Nirvana by calling her mommy. After she gets the powers of the Silky, she does save Okarun on a few occasions and fights against the Serpoians repeatedly. She also does clear up that she is the one who spread the rumors and obviously feels bad about it, but doesn't clear this up with Momo herself. Aira could get better as time and the show go on, but as it stands, her ego, her constant bullying of Momo, and her constant annoyance bring her here. But even then, those things in the gray area don't hold a candle to the worst of the worst. These are the bad to evil. The bad to evil section starts with Nessie. As its name implies, Nessie is a version of the Loch Ness Monster, who the Serpoians hired. Nessie was hired specifically to kill Momo, which it tries to do repeatedly. Regardless of what it was hired for, it's implied that it may not have super high intelligence, as it doesn't speak nor use its powers in any way besides firing randomly. We don't see much of Nessie, but its bloodthirst is what lands it here. Speaking of not enough to talk about, up next we have Earthbound Spirit Crab. The Earthbound Spirit Crab is one of the secondary antagonists of the first arc, the spirit bound to the tunnel that Turbo Granny lives within. Whilst the crab doesn't appear for very long, it does try to kill Momo and Okarun, but it's implied it's only doing so to get Turbo Granny back. It later fuses with Turbo Granny, but it's obvious that she's in charge of the fusion. The crab is very similar to Nessie, but wasn't hired to kill, so it has to fall a little lower. Falling just outside of the bottom three is the Flatwoods Monster. The Flatwoods Monster is a Serpoian alien who is sent to hunt down Okarun so they can make him fulfill his promise of giving away his stuff to the aliens. It doesn't appear for long, but it, like the previous two, goes on what is essentially a murderous rampage, trying to kill both Okarun and Momo so they can fulfill his promise. It does get very close to killing them, but as it's merely trying to cash in on a promise, it can't fall any lower, as one could see this as a vaguely noble ideal. And also, it's instantly outclassed in evil by our bottom three. Speaking of our bottom three, taking our bronze medal of evil is Turbo Granny. Turbo Granny is a yokai and the first antagonist of the series. She's a very interesting case. She's a yokai who's obsessed with speed, chasing down and cursing those who try to run away. This is what happens to Okarun. After cursing him, she constantly taunts and tries to kill Okarun and Momo. However, after she's defeated, she hides inside Okarun's soul, and after she's thrown out of him, she's put inside of a lucky cat idol. Now, this doesn't curb her murderous tendencies, but without her powers, Turbo Granny is stuck as a cat who's more annoying than anything. After she gets into her cat form, she ends up helping Momo and Okarun on a few different occasions. The other thing that brings her up a little bit is that she's doing her curses and murders because of the many women who were killed in the tunnel. This does humanize her a little bit, but even all of this does not detract from her weird advances on minors, her murders, and her cursing of random children, hence her ranking here. But taking our silver medal are the Hospital Serpoians. The Serpoians are a race of aliens who appear as one of the main antagonists throughout the series. They always appear in trios and first appear in the hospital that Okarun sends Momo to. This trio of Serpoians appear in the hospital and kidnap Momo to experiment on her. They also attempt to assault her and remove some of her internal organs whilst leaving her alive. Because they're all male and reproduce through cloning, they cannot evolve, so they're attempting to use a female to induce evolution. Now, the way they go about things is undoubtedly terrible, especially considering Momo is a high school student. However, they are slightly outclassed in terms of terribleness. Because the worst of the worst, earning our gold medal of evil, are the school Serpoians. Much like the previous, this trio of Serpoians appear in the school. They're hunting down Okarun to remove his stuff so they can further their evolution using his power. When they arrive at the school, this trio brings along Mr. Mantis, Shrimp, and Nessie, bringing the Dover Demon to beat Okarun unconscious and Nessie to kill Momo. They're specifically looking to experiment on and potentially kill Okarun while straight up murdering Momo. When Aira reveals her powers, they decide to try and kidnap her as well so they can remove her stuff. This trio does everything the previous trio does, excluding the assault, but adds on a murderous streak. The final surviving Serpoian not only brainwashes the Dover Demon, but also force fuses himself with Nessie and the Dover Demon. They show little to no care for a life outside of their own, and it's what brings them down to the very bottom of our list, for now. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.